Hello, this is John Schaap and welcome to this video on AOS 10. In this video I'm going to show you how to add controllers running AOS 8 to Aruba Central and how to turn them into gateways running AOS 10. I'm going to show you how to convert a gateway running standard AOS 8 controller code and also one running SD-Branch code. I will use ZTP, Zero Touch Provisioning, to add them to Aruba Central, and the two gateways will automatically form a gateway cluster. So, which gateways can be upgraded to AOS 10? Only 7000 and 9000 series controllers can be converted to AOS 10 gateways. All controllers that were shipped since 2017, they support ZTP, Zero Touch Provisioning, so they are easy to convert to a gateway. Of course, you can also manually upgrade to AOS 10 via the command line interface or via the web user interface of the controller. And keep in mind that the existing controller, so the AOS 8 configuration, is lost during the conversation, so you have to start from scratch on Aruba Central. So in the lab setup used for this video, I will use the last port, port 3, for Zero Touch Provisioning. That port will automatically turn into an access port and also into VLAN 4094, and the gateway will run DHCP on that, so that it can connect to Central. I will use later on port 0 as my trunk port for the final configuration. So in general, any port except port 1 can be used for Zero Touch Provisioning. So this is the lab setup that we're going to use. You see that we have two controllers, a 9004 and a 9004 LTE on the left hand side, and they are both connected to a CX6100 switch. I will use port 0 to connect it to the CX6100 switch, and you can see in the diagram that it is a trunk port and that the allowed VLANs are 1, 200 and 4000. I will use a separate port, and in this case the last port, for Zero Touch Provisioning. It's a good idea to use it to do it like this, because if you want to do everything on that same trunk port that you connect to the CX6100 switch, it can be hard to get rid of the ZTP config that is used, so the VLAN 4094 and the access mode. If you then have to convert that into a trunk port, you could have issues with overlapping subnets, and also you could lose connection to the gateway, and then you end up in a bad situation, because then the gateway cannot connect to Central anymore, and you can avoid that by using a separate port like I do here. Other option is of course to just configure the controllers via full setup from the command line interface. Then you don't use Zero Touch Provisioning. Other thing that you should note is that VLAN 200, that's the VLAN that we're going to use in a future video to terminate tunnel Wi-Fi clients that are tunneled from the access point to the gateway. And that VLAN should only exist on these two ports, and of course on the port towards the router if this is your layer 3 device, but never ever on the ports where the APs connect to. So you see here also the trunk allowed is just 1 and 5. There's no 200 here towards the APs, because the APs will put tunnel traffic in a tunnel from the AP towards the gateway. So this is the first gateway that we're going to convert to AOS 10. You see it's currently running 8604, that's SD-Branch code. And this has been speeded up, so that's why it goes so quickly. You do see that Zero Touch Provisioning is starting. You see that it gets an IP address via DHCP, and we're going to enable debug also, because that allows us to see what is going on with the conversion process. So here you see that the controller connects to Aruba Activate, and it receives a file from Activate, and below that you see that the response file is empty. So Activate does not know what to do with this device, and there's a reason for that, and the reason for that is that we did not add the device to Central and did not add a license to it. So that's what we're going to do right now. So we go to first to the GreenLake Cloud Platform, that's where you will see that there's only 2 devices there, and that's the 2 access points. So we're now going to add the 2 controllers. We do it again via serial number and MAC address. So we fill in the serial number and the MAC address of these 2 devices. And I'm gonna right away also add the other one, so that we do not have to do that when we add the other gateway a little bit later. So both of them are now added. You click next, don't need to assign a tag to it, and you click finish. And then you see that there's 4 devices, but only 2 are assigned and subscribed. And that's because these controllers or gateways do not have a subscription assigned yet. They are assigned to the right application, Aruba Central, and the right region, EU Central, but we still need to add a subscription to them. So I only have advanced with security here, so that's the one that I'm selecting and applying. And I will do that for both gateways, so that they are both properly licensed, and then the zero-touch provisioning process will continue. So you now see advanced with security for both gateways, and everything looks good. So next, what we also need to do in Central is do the device pre-provisioning, so putting the gateways in the right group. And that's what you do here. You select the gateways, you select the destination group, so they both go into the AOS 10 group. And do that for both. So the list now shows that both these gateways belong to the correct group, which is the AOS 10 group. If you go to AOS 10 group and then to devices and then gateways, you also see them listed here. Of course, they are still offline because they have not connected to Central yet. That needs to happen next. So the other thing that we need to do is set firmware compliancy on the group. So when the gateway connects, it automatically receives the correct AOS 10 version, which is 10.4.0.0 in this case. So that's what we do here. Just set the firmware compliancy and automatically reboot when the upgrade is done. And now it is time to continue the ZTP process. So that's what we see here again. We have seen this screen before. This is still running the old software version, as you can see, the 8604. And it is now again getting an IP address. I'm going to enable debug again to see what's going on. You see that it connects to activate again, it downloads the file, and now it gets a response that it needs to connect to device-eucentral3.central.arubanetworks.com. And that is what is happening right now. I've again speeded this up, so in real life this takes longer. So now you see that it has connected to Central, and it also has been upgraded to release 10.4.0.0. So if we now go back to Central, we see that there is one gateway online. And that's this one. But what you also see is that the system IP address is not set. And now comes a very important part. You need to set the system IP address straight away. If you do not do that and start configuring, it will get you in trouble later on. So if you go to the audit trail, you can see that the device has been onboarded, that it has been upgraded and rebooted. So we now go to the device in the group level. And on the interfaces, we're going to add a new VLAN, and we call that System IP VLAN. And I'm choosing VLAN 4000 for that. So this is the VLAN where the system IP will be configured on. And as I said already, this system IP is extremely important. If you do not set this system IP correctly, you will not be able to configure the gateway. So we now go to the gateway itself and go back to interfaces and to the VLAN 4000 that we previously configured at the group level. And now at the device level, we're going to add an IP address to this device. So I'm using 172.20.20.1 for the first one and .2 for the second one later in this video. You click Save Settings and then you have to set the system IP address to use VLAN 4000, and that is what has been done here. And again, Save Settings. Then go back to the group level, look at the gateways, and you directly see that the system IP has been set correctly. So we go to ports and we do see at the group level we don't see any ports, so select +sign and all configurable ports, and then you will be able to configure ports. If you go to high availability to see your cluster, you see that it mentions that the gateways don't have a site ID and won't form an auto cluster because you have set the cluster mode to auto site, but you did not add this device to a site yet. So go to organization and click on sites. That's your site, and you see that the gateways are not there, so move them from the right to the left to add them to the site. And once that is done, then a cluster is automatically formed on this site with the devices that belong to this site, of course. So let's have a look at the other gateway. As you can see, this one is running 8.7.1.1. So that's an Aruba OS controller version code, and this one also does zero touch provisioning. So let's enable debug again so that we can see what's going on. And here you see that the controller is not upgrading because it says the controller is not fresh from factory, ignoring mandatory upgrade request. That means that this controller has been used in the past and also has been upgraded from one AOS8 version to another AOS8 version. That will set a bit in memory that you cannot change yourself. You need support to help you with that, or just do as I do and just go to the web user interface of this AOS8 controller and upgrade it manually to a 10.3 or 10.4 version. So that's what we're going to do right now. We are going to open a web browser and connect to the mobility controller, go to maintenance, software maintenance, and just browse for the local file. It's a 10.3 version in this case, and I'm just going to upgrade the controller and reboot after the upgrades. So the controller has automatically upgraded to 10.3 and also has done the ZTP process, so you will see it back in Central. So we now go back to the device again. I'm not going to use the wizard, so I'm going to exit that. And you go back to that controller and go to the VLANs. Again, VLAN 4000. So remember, system IP set is the first thing you do before you do anything else to make sure that you can communicate and can configure the device. So give it an IP address in the same subnet as the other controller, of course, in VLAN 4000. So the other one is .1, this is .2. Go to System, System IP address, and select your VLAN 4000. Save the settings. And when we go to the gateways, you see that they both have a system IP address. They both belong to the correct site and the correct group. So this is all looking good. So now it's time to configure the fixed IP address that we're going to give to both the gateways. So we're going to put that on VLAN 1. So you go to VLAN 1 on the first gateway, enable routing, give it an IP address. In my case that's in the 192.168.1 subnet, so I'm going to give this gateway .60 and the other one .61. So go back to the group, select the other gateway, click on device and go to interface VLAN 1 to configure the second one. And that, as I said, is going to be .61. So these IP addresses are from now on used for the management and for the connection to Aruba Central. The ZTP VLAN is only used once, and that was during initial install, and we're not going to use that anymore. What we also need to do is now set a static default gateway. So I already did that, you can see that here. Because it previously with ZTP it received it via DHCP, now you have to set it manually. So now we need to configure port 0 as a trunk port. So you go to the group and to interfaces and you select port 0 and then make it a trunk port and allow the VLANs on that interface. So in this case I only need VLAN 1 and 4000 for now. Later on I will add other ones also when we are going to add tunnel SSIDs, but that's in the next video. So now you have both controllers working fine. They have a system IP address, they have a group, they have a site, and they're both up. And if you then go to configuration audit, you should always see that the config status is update successful. If that is not the case, then it has an issue in sending the update. You could see other status there, also rollback, etc. So always check if the devices are in sync. So some basic stuff that needs to be configured also is your NTP server for setting the time right, and also your time zone, set it to the right time zone. In my case that's Amsterdam, so I'm setting it to that time zone. And the other thing that we are going to configure is DNS. It's also very important because it uses DNS when it reboots to connect to Activate and to connect to Central. So if there's no DNS active, it will fail to connect to Central. Last thing is setting the name of the second gateway correctly. And then we're done. So let's have a look at how the clusters are formed. So you go to the group and to the config and then to high availability. You see that the cluster mode is set to automatic. There's two choices there, auto site or auto group. Or you can switch off automatic, of course, and then you have to manually build your cluster. But you see we use auto site here, both belong to the same site, and they will form a cluster. So now let's have a look at clusters. So you go to your group gateways and you see that there is one cluster. It's an auto gateway cluster built on site because it has the word site in it. And you see that both gateways belong to that. It's multi-model because it's an LTE and a non-LTE version. And you can see the cluster info, what the capacity is, if there is mismatches on the VLANs, and also the gateways. You can see them both here. One is leader and the other one is a member. And there's no tunnels at the moment, of course, because that is only happening in the next video when we are going to add tunnel and mixed mode SSIDs. That brings us to the end of this AOS 10 video. So let's recap on what we have done. We have added and converted two 9004 controllers, one running AOS8 controller software and the other one running AOS8 SD-Branch software. Keep an eye out for the next video, which will be posted next week, where I will show you how to add an SSID in tunnel and mixed mode. So don't miss it, and please subscribe, like, and let me know in the comments what else you would like to see on AOS 10. Bye for now.